Welcome to the Spunky Spirit Podcast. I'm your host, psychic medium Carrie Muggs. This is where we learn all things spirit, everything from spiritual gifts, awakenings, ghosts, aliens, and starseeds. Nothing is untouchable, but always fun and spunky. I am honored to be on this spiritual journey with you, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Hello, welcome to this episode of Spunky Spirit. I am psychic medium Carrie Muggs, and today we're going to talk about shadow work. And I know I've talked about this before, but I need to talk about it again. I feel really strongly that I need to talk about it again because it's something that we work on throughout our whole lives. It's not just something we do and it's one and done. There's always healing to do in our lives. And sometimes when we think we've already healed from a trauma in our life or something in our life, we can go on for years and then go through something and have it be triggered again. And so that's why we constantly are working on ourselves and on our healing. And it's not something, spiritual growth is not something outside of you. Spiritual enlightenment, spiritual power, spiritual tapping into your gifts is not something outside of you. It's always something inside of you. And when it's inside of you, it's because you have to heal. You have to heal from stuff, and you have to heal from things that trigger you. And even if you had the best childhood ever, there's still some things in your life that you have to process and you have to get through. And this is called shadow work. There's lots of things. Nobody ever goes through this world unscathed. Even if you're the richest, most powerful, best life, there's things inside of your lifetime that you're learning because you wanted to learn those things. You put it on your blueprint before you came here that you wanted to learn and grow, and spiritual growth is an inside job. It's always going on. And so a lot of times the way you know the difference between the dark and the light of healing is when you're triggered about something, or when somebody triggers you about something. Like if you go to a healer and they bring a trigger to you, and what I mean by trigger is you something comes up again and you feel the feels and you feel the drowning, or you feel the upsetness or the tension or the anxiety from it. A dark healer, or somebody who's dark, the dark doesn't want you to process it. They want it to keep you down. They want you to dwell on it. The dark wants you to, that's what anxiety is. Think about it all the time and dwell on it and not deal with it, but just, like constantly think about it and dwell on it and not move from it and have it hinder you and have you stay put. It actually will lower your frequency. But if you go to a healer that's a light, a healer that is, trying to help or trying to help heal, they'll help you deal and process the triggers and the anxiety and help you feel it, but move forward in it and move past it and move more. And so that's how you can tell the difference between when you do shadow work, the light and the dark. Because if you're processing it and you're moving it and you're raising your frequency, then that's when you know you're having kind of an awakening too, is you want to learn more, you want to get better, you want to heal, you want to raise your frequency. If you're like stuck in this, if you're not growing and you're not having, there's always growth, right? Always growth, because without growth, without change, we wouldn't have growth. And so there's always something to be learning about yourself, always something new. And the trick is to love yourself and accept yourself with even all those dark triggers and all of that trauma and all of that, all of that stuff that you think other people don't like about you, you love. All the stuff that you think maybe you don't want anybody to know, or, those thoughts that you have sometimes that you hope nobody knows about, or about other people, or about yourself, all of that stuff. You have to realize that you are not alone and that you are beautiful inside and out, and you've got to love yourself regardless of that. And feeling not good enough, you got to be happy where you're at in what you're doing, because you know that there's always progression. If you're raising your frequency and raising your light, there's always progression. Now, awakenings usually happen when you're going through some sort of trauma. Either you've lost somebody to, a relationship, or lost them to dying, or in your grieving. Grief causes a lot of spiritual awakenings. And spiritual awakenings are kind of the start of deep night of the soul. Spiritual awakenings, are true. You know truth. You see past the lies of people and of the earth and all the things, and you start to question everything you've ever been taught, everything you've ever gone through. You start to question it, and you try to start to heal from it. And so that can be dark night of the soul too. You don't have to go through something super traumatic as a child, but even just growing up in a certain religion can cause, you could have some spiritual growth there that could be triggering, because you could be like, okay, is this what I really thought it was? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And any type of thing that you've gone through that like doesn't let you be authentic, or in your whole lifetime, that you weren't allowed to be who you wanted to be, um, that would can cause any type of like trauma response. Or, and I am not a counselor. I'm going to tell you this right now. I am not a counselor. I tell this to people all the time when I do readings. I do not counsel. This is just from my own opinion and from what I've seen, because honestly, spiritual awakenings can be very, very, if you are going through a spiritual awakening and you are going through the dark night of the soul, I do recommend maybe going to a counselor who also understands spiritual sense or spiritualness. And because there is a fine line, I've always said this, between mental health and spiritual health. And sometimes that line can be crossed. If you ever feel like somebody or something is telling you to do something you don't want to, or if you feel like you're in the dark night of soul and you don't want to try and get out of it, and you stay in that lower frequency, you're going to need help. And it's okay to ask for help. It really, really is. Shadow work is no joke, and it sounds scary, and it sounds scary. And shadow works, I mean, when I first heard of shadow work, I thought like ghosts and demons and all that stuff were gonna like come after me, and that's not what it is. Shadow work is figuring out your shadow, your own demons, your own things that cause you to act a certain way, or to cause you to not be yourself and who you want to be. And because you need to figure out who you are, and who you are authentically, and what you love and what you love to do, not because somebody taught you to be like that. I mean, you think about it, when we're born, we're given a name, we're given a number, and we're given a religion, and we are expected to believe in those things. And we do believe in those things because that's what we're taught. And so there's going to be lots of things that happen in your lifetime that are not aligned with who you are authentically, who you are deep down, because those things are just automatically given to you, and they don't even give you time to grow and to expand before those things are handed down to you. So as you get older, you might decide, that's not how I feel, or that's not how I feel. That's not what, does that make sense? That's trying to explain it, but because shadow work is intricate, and it's complicated, and it's something that lots of people don't know how to get through it, and they don't want to do it. A lot of people will not attempt shadow work, and I'm just telling you right now, if you go to a healer or to somebody who you want to help with spiritually, that you want them to help you spiritually, if they haven't experienced shadow work, I'm not really sure if they should. I mean, if they go from like skip the steps of shadow work and all of that stuff, I don't want to, because everybody has to start somewhere, right? And I started before I went through a whole bunch of shadow work too, but I didn't really dwell on shadow work. I just did, like, I connected to the other side. But now when I talk about this, or when it comes through in readings that you need to process certain things, I get it. I get it. I understand it, because shadow work is no joke. And I'm not saying you have to go through shadow work. I think everybody does. Everybody has to go through their own depth, or their own dark night of the soul, their own like, oh my gosh, is this really me? Is this really what I want to do? Question everything about their existence and their life and how they were treated or what they believe. That's where false beliefs come through. That's where, how you were raised comes through. All of that comes through. And if there's not a time in your life where you don't question that, or you don't, it could totally be healthy, but you always have to question everything. And that's a lot of times when shadow work will appear, is when you start to question your own beliefs, the things that you were taught, or the things that um, you know, the things that you thought you stood for. The things that can help you get through shadow work, though, are energy work. And I'm talking about, Akashic record readings and Reiki and massages and foot zones, Tibetan bowl massages, even readings, any type of readings, because, your ancestors can come through sometimes and tell you things that you need to work on or process. And and so that kind of will help too. But yeah, shadow work is the thing that's hard too about shadow work is some people think, well, I don't have anything to heal. And that's also not true. And I don't want you to create things to heal, because if you're in good mode right now and you're life is good, life is great, because you're when you don't know that there's a beyond or there's more to it, sometimes you're stuck in the matrix a little bit, and you don't know. And so you think everything's fine. And then something happens and things start to shift, and you start to question everything. You start to question all the things that you were ever taught and all of your childhood and all the things. And that's when everything just kind of goes, and it's kind of crazy. So I guess I'm kind of talking a little bit about awakenings too, because awakenings can trigger shadow work, because that's when you're what do I actually believe in? Who am I actually? And kind of too, when you're stuck in this life of just being the same after day after day after day after day, and you kind of think, oh my gosh, do I really exist to wake up and go to work every day and come home and then do the same thing? When you kind of start to question that, and there's some people that don't ever question that. And I think like my dad, I think he didn't, but I think he kind of did, because I think that that's why he was an alcoholic. Because I think down deep he knew there was something different, but he didn't know how to grasp that, or he didn't know how to find it. And so he would drink. And I think that some people are fine just living their lives, going to work and doing the same thing every day, and just living the best life they can. And that's great. And I think that there's some people out there that want to know more. They want to go deeper, and they want to know purpose, and they want to know, what's really the truth and what's really out there, and is there more? And that's when an awakening happens, and that's when the shadow work starts. Because when you're in the normal before awakening and after an awakening. Before an awakening, it's just there's some people out there that believe the more you suffer, the holier you are. There are some religions out there that believe that the more you suffer and the more trials you go through, the more worthy you are. And that is not true either. That is not true, because we are in this world that we will find joy and authenticity. But to get there, we do have to really, really peel back and figure out the truth about our lives, the truth about who we are. And sometimes that can be so hard, because it's not what we were taught, or it's not what we thought it was in our whole belief. It's kind of like if you're driving in the car right now and you have little kids, you might want to skip this part, but it's kind of you're taught about Santa Claus. You're taught that there's a Santa Claus, he comes to your house, you believe that and you believe that. And then when you find out the truth, it's kind of devastating. And it's kind of okay, what else is not real? Is Jesus not real? You start questioning other things. That's kind of what a spiritual awakening is everything you're taught, you're starting to find holes in it. You're starting to figure out things are different than what you thought. And it could be in a lot of things. It could be in your religion, your government, your family, anything. And then you start to question other things, and you start to question inside. And then you start to question, why did this happen to me? Or why, because a lot of beliefs, if something does happen to you, like abuse or something in your life, you question why. Why did this happen? And as soon as you start to question, that's when the awakening starts to kind of come through and you start to see truth. You start to see other things, and then you get to process the trauma from it. You get to process, you know, the what do you call it when someone's disloyal? Like you feel betrayed, the betrayal from all of it, the betrayal of what you were supposed to believe in and how things were supposed to be. That's kind of where you start to grow, and then you start to, because a lot of times when we do have trauma like that, we blame ourselves. We blame our own selves, and then, or sometimes we blame other people. And, an awakening can be that you take control of it yourself and you own it, or you realize that it wasn't your fault and it was, they're all kind of different. So awakenings can and shadow work can be very complicated and very hard. They can be, but I promise you, they are so much worth it on the other side. There's just so much more knowledge and so much more freedom out on the other side of this. Because I'm not kidding you. When I was going through my first divorce, I thought it was the end of the world. I was devastated. I was depressed. I was like dark night of the soul, couldn't function. And it was just like there were times that I would lay in bed and the only reason I got out of bed is because I had 4 children that I also had to raise. And it was so devastating, so much trauma in it, and so much just yuck. And, but then I got to the other side of it. And now that I've like learned so much from it and become who I am, so much stronger, I'm so much just a better person, just awesome. And and my kids are probably going through counseling right now because of the trauma that they endured from some of that. But at the end of it, I would do it again. I would do it again in a heartbeat because I am such a better, stronger, more emotional, just intact person and more confident and than I ever was when I was going through it. And so much better, so much better, so much more me, more authentic, and going through that. And then also too, when I was going through my faith crisis with my past religion, same thing. I would, so traumatic, so hard, so chaotic, so hurtful, like every day. Like I was just like, because you have this huge belief system and you think you're going against the grain, but then when you come out the other side of it, you realize that was not what. It's just so worth it. I want you to know that any kind of shadow work you go through, any kind of awakening you go through, may seem so hard, but you're not alone. And at the end of it, you are so much more you and authentic, and your frequency is so much higher, and your love and compassion and all of that is so much higher. You're strong, your commitment to who you are. And you realize a lot of times you're not selfish. What we've been taught so much is to put everybody else first. And as long as you have compassion, you don't have to have that, you don't have to put everybody else first. You can put you first. So then you can put your oxygen mask on first. So then you can help others. Right. And it's okay if you don't want certain relationships in your family. And it's okay that you're self-preserving. Now, there's a difference between self-preserving and punishing. If you're eliminating people from your family because you're punishing them, that's one thing. And you probably need to work on that more. And you need to do some more soul searching on that. But if you're eliminating people from your life for self-preservation to protect you because there's so much trauma and hurt there, then that's something you need to also view and look at. Because, this world is, I hate to say this, but sometimes this earth is hard. Earth can be hard. But the trick is it's like a game and you want to win it, right? Like you want to get past, it's like almost like, my son used to play Legend of Zelda, and there was, he'd go to different lands in the game. And there was one, the Shadow Castle or something like that, that was kind of scary. But you had to go through it to win the game. You had to go through it. And so this is your Shadow Castle. You have to go through it. You have to face your fears. You have to face all the shit. You have to heal your shit, and you have to face it so you can win the game. That's exactly what you got to do. And it's so profoundly worth it. It can be scary because I remember the times when he'd have to go through the Shadow Castle on the game. I would have to go in the room with him and sit on the bed because he would kind of scare him. It would be, and it was just like cartoonish. It was like Legend of Zelda. It's a game, and it would, and so that's kind of how you do. So, if you need someone to help you go through the castle, then confide in somebody who's not already going through the castle and that has the capacity to help you go through the castle, right? So, but I'm telling you, if you want to grow spiritually, then you have to go through the castle. You do. It's not spiritual enlightenment. Spiritual gifts are not an outside job. They're all inside. And when people say that, they mean you have to go through your shiz. You have to heal your shiz before you can get it. And that's just the beauty of it. Because when you do go through that, you get to know who you are and you get to love yourself unconditionally no matter what you've gone through or went through or have done in the past. And so that's why shadow work is so important, to grow spiritually. And shadow work and I think an awakening kind of go hand in hand, because I think awakening, your first awakening, there's more than just one awakening. I feel like there's the first awakening is like rabbit hole. Like you're going down this rabbit hole going, what the heck? The second awakening, and then you kind of go through some trauma and you heal your trauma. You figure out what you're trying to heal. And then the second awakening is just, I just feel like they're frequency raises. It's pretty much what they are. Every time you raise your frequency, you go through something. You have to go through something. And sometimes it's just about having confidence in yourself, because it could be something as small as you getting teased by someone you liked in grade school, and that diminishing your confidence to do other things throughout the your eternity. And I tell this story all the time about my grandma. When she was in second grade, she went up to the chalkboard to do a math problem, and while she was up there doing the math problem, her pants fell down, and she was devastated because all the kids laughed at her, and that followed her throughout her life. And for little things, like she was afraid to get up in front of public. She was afraid. She lost her confidence, and she didn't ever like to wear loose clothing because she was afraid it was going to fall off. Just so many things that it affected that she didn't even realize. And it wasn't even like anybody hurt her. It wasn't like she was abused. It wasn't like, it was just something she carried throughout the rest of her life that was pretty traumatic for her. And she was a public speaker. She was like the county treasurer, and it affected her for the rest of her life. So just little things like that. And you don't know what you don't know until you go through it, until you go through the shadow work and figure out where it came from. So when you do get triggered and you're like, why is that making me so mad? Why is this bothering me? And you figure out and you go down the process, this is bothering me because of this from so long ago. That's like 90% of the healing, right? 90% of the healing. And sometimes you think you know where it came from, or you think okay, I feel like this because of this. Sometimes it could be something completely different. Now, I'm not telling you to create shadow work. And I'm not saying, okay, so if you're in a spot right now where things are good and you feel good, keep going, keep going. Shadow work will find you. Honestly, shadow work will find you, because you'll go through something and you'll be like, oh my gosh, why is that bothering so much? Why am I getting depressed right now? Why am I doing this? And it's because so shadow work will find you. So if you're fine and everything's great right now, keep that up. If you're in a happy, everything is bliss, the kind of going on right now, just stay in there. Stay in that happy moment for as long as you can. Don't go looking for shadow work. I mean, you can always look to heal. You can always look to heal, but when you can go to, I feel like everybody needs counseling all the time, whether they're not going through shadow work or not, but because that's that crutch that you can that helps you get through the castle. But if you're in a good place right now and everything seems really good, then don't go mess with that. Don't go mess with that. Just enjoy it while it lasts. And then when you do go through a time when you're like, what's wrong with me right now? Why am I feeling like this? Where is this coming from? Then start looking at where that goes. And if you feel like there's a pattern of that, then maybe start looking where that comes from. So Yeah, shadow work's a complicated thing, and you can find lots and lots of stuff online about it. But there's no way. I think there's even books written on it. But there's no 100% this is the right way to do it. Shadow work is like different for everybody. Healing is different for everybody. I heal by talking about it. Some people heal by doing energy work. Um, I'm very visual, so I have to process it that way. And lots of people are different. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. As long as you can get through it and be able to like see things and have it not bother you or cause anxiety or cause intrusive thoughts, as long as you can start working on it and know why those things happen, then it'll start eliminating those things, the anxiety, the intrusive thoughts, the depression, and then it will be like you'll come out on the other side of it. And it's just like, there's things I feel like now that that divorce thing that I was talking about, I feel like I've like healed from it. I feel like I've moved forward. But then when my kids kind of go through some of their healing process summit, it pulls other things out that I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And that does bug me. And I need to probably process that because so shadow work finds you when you're ready for that. So there's some things that I've already processed for different things, like for the divorce, there's some things already processed, but now spirit may think, okay, now she's ready to process this part. So don't go looking, don't be like, okay, I want to process everything for my divorce and do it now. It will happen throughout your lifetime. Just know what it is when it comes, right? I guess that's what I really want you to know. It's a lifetime experience, and just know that it's not going to be a one and done thing, and it's going to happen throughout your lifetime. And you can think you've already, processed something from a trauma that you had, and it will come up again later, and that's okay. It's because you weren't ready for it then, but now you are. So, and just don't go looking for it, because even if you go looking for it, like let's say I want to go in and say, okay, this is what happened during my divorce and I want to heal from it right now. Well, spirit's going to be like, okay, you can heal from this part of it, but you're not ready for this part. So that's kind of how it works. It's just a whole life. It's a whole life. There's lots of castles in the game that you're going to have to go through. And just know that it's part of the process. And every castle that you go through, every dark castle you go through is going to be so worth it. As long as you raise the frequency. The thing is don't stay in the castle. Don't stay in that dark castle. Don't stay in there with the shadows. Don't just just conquer the castle and then move forward and keep going in the bright sun like Zelda, and go to the other farms and the villages, and then when you come across another castle, go in and process it and then move on to the next one. So I hope that's a good analogy. I don't know. It's just that I want you to know that you're loved and you're not doing it alone. You have so many ancestors with you and so many spirit guides. They're helping you the whole time during this. And it is hard, but it's also something that you felt like in spirit before you came here on your your blueprint that you wanted to experience, that you needed to process. So some of these castles could be from past lives that you don't know about too. That's why Akashic record readings are kind of awesome too. So some of those, some castles are from stuff you've gone through on this earth and this lifetime, and some of those castles are from past lives, but usually they're parallel to each other. They're usually, if the castle is a past life castle or trauma or, shadow work, then it's because it's affecting you somehow in this lifetime. They don't usually pull a past life trauma or a past life castle and put you through it if it has nothing to do with this lifetime. So if the past life has something to do with this lifetime or a lesson that you wanted to learn, then it's going to come here in this lifetime too. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you guys, like I say though, everything you need is already inside of you. The trick is to not, you can't rush spiritual growth. You can't say, okay, I want to be psychic and be psychic. You've got to work on it. It's something you've got to work on constantly all the time. Just like if you want to lose weight and have a toned body, you got to go to the gym all the time. You got to work on it. And this is something, your spiritual growth, your healing is something you got to work on every day. And it's worth it because it's you, right? And you're worth it. So it's something you need to work on every single day, and it's not selfish. And you are loved. And the trick is you need to figure out how to love yourself. And I know that's so cliche, but it's such the truth. You got to learn how to know that you are good enough and you are worthy and you are loved and you're loved unconditionally. And it doesn't really matter by who, because you need to love yourself. So, regardless of all the castles that you've been through. So, I love you guys so, so much. And I do have a gallery reading in Idaho Falls coming up on April 26th. I know in Carrie Connects I said August, but I meant April 26th. I also have a spirit guide. Meet Your Spirit Guides class coming up on March 29th in Idaho Falls. I am working on doing some of these classes online, but we're working that out. So I love you guys, and I will see you not next week, but the week after that.